Gardening Live with this guy, Frankie Flowers. If you're wondering who the heck am I am a four-time best-selling garden author. I come here each and every week live from 9 to 9:30. Of course, you can watch it later on in the week where we answer any and all your garden questions. I try to get as many answers as I can to your questions. And then also the community that joins us on here is on answering your questions as well. So really this whole half hour is to guide you through your garden and maybe make you aware of some of the challenges you may face coming this week, or maybe some of the tips and tricks that can get your Garden of Whedon turning into the Garden of Eden. That's what I'm saying all the time. Got to tell you a couple things about my week. One thing is there used to be a fantastic garden in Aurora called Merlin's Hollow, and it was just this fabulous little space where this husband and wife put decades of work into. I saw that the property was for sale. And so I went down there just to go check it out. And it looks like it's just been forgotten. And it just kind of broke my heart. And it just showed that Mother Nature can quickly take over a space. And really, if a space doesn't have a little bit of love and care and nurture, then that space can be taken over by those weeds, that Garden of Whedon, turning it into your Eden. So you always got to be protective of your garden. But at the same token, you need to take care of nature and work with nature overall. The one thing that we want to bring up is that we are going into a period of time where we're going to have an increase in disease and insects in our gardens. And I always mention, it's super important for me to mention as well. I'm just going to throw this on, throw my glasses on so that I can show you guys too. It's really important that as we're going into this period of time and we're going to take care of a bunch of different insects that are out there, just a reminder, you're always trying to look for those Health Canada approved insecticides, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, because those are all ones that have actually been vetted and all the research has been done that they're not going to cause you any harm. That means some of the items that you're thinking about maybe purchasing online, if it's not from an accredited retailer, if it's just from some site that you really don't know any knowledge about, and if you don't see those products available in Canada, then they're probably not approved products. And you do run the risk of not only harming your plants, but actually harming your family, your community, and then also nature. So just be really careful out there. That's the key that's right now. Another thing that I want to bring up is some of the things that you could be seeing in your garden right now. So these are some of the things that you need to be aware of. One thing that you need to be aware of at this time, I'm just going to go over to Chrome tab here, is of course these guys. And these guys, of course, are aphids. And aphids are something normally that you often will see on your roses. And generally, if you take a look to the tips of your roses, you will see them right up there, right by the buds of those roses. For instance, we can take this picture right here, pop that in. I'm just going to go, oh, there we go. There's that picture that's there, but that's not really telling us what to do. It's just talking about getting rid of aphids. But there's so much information out there on aphids and getting them rid of aphids overall. But the key is, the first thing is, if you see these little bumps on your plants, the key is, first off, is to take your hose and wash them off. Easiest thing you can do, just high pressure spray, wash them off. Often if you see ants in behind on your plants, so the ants are eating the honeydew of the aphids. So first step is to wash them off. Second step is to apply an insecticidal soap. So there are many on the market. The one that I use is Bug Be Gone. You apply that insecticidal soap. Third thing you want to do is you want to welcome and incorporate ladybugs in the space, because ladybugs eat aphids, so they can help you out. So just be aware, and I always take the time to smell the roses. You hear me say, take the time to smell the roses, because take the time to go out there and check for things like aphids. Or another thing that you should check for at this time of year too is you should go into your vegetable garden and you should be checking for these guys. I just got to go here, and I got to go to a Chrome tab, and I just got to go to here. And that is in your vegetable garden, if you have any kale, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, they always run the threat of cabbage moths. And so you'll see this white little moth that flies around, and that white little moth will then lay some larvae that then develop into these little caterpillars. And those little caterpillars, of course, go ahead and start to eat the leaves of your cabbage type plants that are out there, and your cauliflower and your broccoli. So a couple things that we can do. First thing that we can do is we can put a floating row cover down, so that prevents that moth from landing on those leaves, still allows light to go through. Second thing that we can do is just to be aware and take a look at the leaves of those plants and see if there's any damage. If there is, then we can look for those little caterpillars. You can always do a pick and squish. And then another application of insecticidal soap is something that you can do. A reminder Pioneers used to always take that soapy bath water and pour it over their vegetables to make sure that their vegetables were fine as well. So those are a few different insects. I'm going to do one more a little bit later on that you should be taking the time to go inspect your garden and make sure that everything out there is totally fine. Now let's see what's going on in the world of my chat this morning and see who's saying hello. We have a good morning from my good friend Tanya. Hey, Tanya, looking forward to the trip that we got coming up. Of course, we're going on that Emerald cruise. Tanya is one of the ones that are joining on the cruise. That cruise is going to be going up through Basel, Switzerland, into Cologne, all the way into Amsterdam. Then that ends off at Floriade. That's with Emerald Cruises. It's going to be just so much fun. Hey, here's another good morning too from Madeline. Good morning to you, Madeline. Catherine, good morning to you as well. Thanks, Frankie, she says. Matthew, good morning to you, Matthew. Heather Fellows, good morning. And good morning to all. We have a lot of good mornings. I want to see if we got some questions down there too. Good morning from, we'll just give a shout out to Tilsonburg this morning. Good morning. Love watching the birds enjoy our pond and gardens. Actually, you know what? I was just reading an article, and that article was the bird bath, how the bird bath should really be brought back into the garden space. Bird baths, of course, give a little source of water for birds to drink, but also for insects and bees to go into. But changing the water in the bird bath is really important as well, because we don't want standing water where mosquitoes can actually develop. But the bird bath is something that, because we're going through extended periods of hot, warm conditions, it's a really good thing for nature to have a little source of water in your garden. A pond is a really good thing, an aquatic garden, because generally you have a pump that circulates that water. And as long as we have circulating water, we don't get mosquito larvae developing. Or what you do, put a few fish in there, and then those fish will eat the mosquito larvae that are there. The only issue is with fish is a lot of the times then raccoons and different things will try to come in and eat your fish. But it's also a beautiful thing to take a look and that sound of water. If you have a noisy environment, so if your backyard has a lot of things going around with your neighbors and whatnot, just a reminder, the incorporation of a fountain or a fountainhead in a pond, that sound of water is a great way of soundscaping, and that will start to drown out some of those other sounds. So as we're landscaping with the eyes, what we see. We're landscaping as well with the nose, what we want to smell, and then what we also want to hear. We can do a lot of things in the landscape for that as well. Tammy is saying good morning from Niagara. Good morning to you, Tammy. We have a good morning as well from Brantford. I see my first Cherokee purple tomatoes. Can't wait until they ripen. Connie, I actually, this week, forgive me, I'm just going to take a little sip of coffee here. This week, I got to take some pictures of my vegetable garden as well. But in my troughs, my garden troughs, this week, I've already harvested cucumbers. I've already harvested cherry tomatoes. I've already harvested a bunch of lettuce. I have a whack of kale. So give me some other kale recipes out there. You know, I know like kale chips, and I can do smoothies, and I can do a bunch of kale salads and things like that. But is there anything else that you love kale with? Yeah, I'm looking forward to those large heirloom those Cherokee purple tomatoes. Oh, that is just something that you gotta love. You gotta love. Okay, this is a question. I'm getting ants on my deck, but I can't find where they're coming from. Any ideas? Thanks. So ants, there's so many different types of ants that are out there. So there's the typical black ant, the garden ant. There's carpenter. So there's carpenter ants, which are those that are actually, if your deck is a little older, that could be eating on decaying wood. So first step is to identify the insect that you have, the type of ant that you have, and just go online and look at the different types of ants. There's fire ants, there's red ants, there's garden ants, and then look at carpenter ants to determine the type of ant. Second thing that it is, ants always need some source of moisture. So generally there's maybe a damp and or wet area around your deck that they'll be coming from. They can be coming from the garden itself. They can be coming from anywhere. If on the deck you've been up there with your kids, let's say your kids have been eating popsicles and they've been dripping that popsicle, that all that nice sugary substance, that's what's attracting the ants. So you can do, there are a lot of ant traps that are available. Make sure they're Health Canada approved, and there's ant baits available. Make sure they're also Health Canada approved. And then those traps and baits, what they'll do is a lot of the times they'll be, the whole process of them is where the ant will pick up that bait and bring it back to the colony, feed the queen. And then once the queen dies, the entire colony dies. So you can control ants that way. Same question that we have there. There's a good morning from East York this morning as well. We have a good morning, I think, from Oshawa. And I did a great Great talk with the Oshawa Garden Club earlier this week. I'm available for talks if you ever want to know if you want to bring me to your group to speak, things like that. I do a lot of those via Zoom now, but I can also do in persons, just Frankie at frankieflowers.com. This is Tanya, seeing a lot of aphid pressure this summer already. Stay on top of them early with an improved insecticidal soap so they don't take over. So Tanya, of course, is with Ball Flora Plant. Selecta 1, she's one of the reps for the breeders that are out there. She's all over the place. And when I mean all over the place, Tanya's been in the Netherlands, she's been in Chicago, she's been all over Ontario, BC, right across the country. So Tanya always gives me a good pulse on what's going on, not only here, but around. And so that's a good thing too, is to stay on top, keep an eye, inspect, and even the occasional spraying of an insecticidal soap will be good as a preventative instead of a reacting. So there you go. Good morning, Nova Scotia. Boom. Mary, I'm going to try to get to Nova Scotia this fall. My summer travel is kind of busy. I'm going to try to get there this fall. Here we go. Mary Lee, what kind of hydrangeas would you recommend that's not too big for a front landscape to go in front of a glass railing? Thank you. So there are a whole bunch of different smaller varieties of hydrangeas. So there's little lamb's ears. There's actually little limelights. Those are good ones. There's Bobo. Bobo is probably the shortest variety of hydrangea with big blooms, quite nice. So look at hydrangea Bobo, B-O-B. It's just B-O-B-O, Bobo, Bobo. So look at hydrangea Bobo. If you don't like that, look at little lamb's ears. So those are the two that I would recommend for you. Great plants, easy to take care of. Full sun, they're going to do best in full sun. In front of that glass rail, they won't overtake the glass rail, but as you look through that little glass rail, you'll be able to see them, and it'll be quite pretty overall. Good morning from Blind River. Blind River, really nice time to be at Blind River at this time of year. My Swiss chard, by the looks of my research, has leaf miner. Many people get leaf miner on their Swiss chard. I've removed those leaves, but how do I stop it from coming back? So you remove the leaves of the leaf miner, and then you're going to use an insecticidal soap after removing the leaves. The reason for that is any of the adult stage of that leaf miner, you will kill that adult stage or control that adult stage. Those new leaves that come up should be clean. And then we're going to be diligent that if we see any leaf miner appearing on any of the leaves, we just pick those off. Nice thing about Swiss chard is one of those plants that we have in the vegetable garden that they grow, we cut and they regrow. They grow and they cut and regrow. Leaf miner is fairly, that goes through a cycle. And that cycle of the leaf miner stage where you're seeing that blistering in the leaf itself is right now. So by controlling and doing that pick, remove, and then take those leaves. Don't let those leaves sit around. Take those leaves, tie them in that compostable bag, put them in your green bin, get rid of them, and then that application of insecticidal soap. So don't worry, though. A lot of people get those as well. Here we go as well. Unstoppable Tracy. Hey, if you want to meet an amazing person and you want to be inspired, check out Unstoppable Tracy. Good family friend as well. Frank Ferragini, such a brilliant idea. Thanks for sharing this. And always, Tracy is an amazing, if you ever want to meet an amazing person and you want to be inspired and you want to be motivated and you want to have the best energy in the world, Tracy has seen so much adversity in her life. But I'm telling you, she is just like the perfect seed that has actually grown to unlimited potential, no matter the adversity that nature has brought her way. So here we go as well. Linda, when is a good time to hang those Japanese beetle traps before they get my canna lilies? So now is beetle season. Actually, that was the other insect that I wanted to talk to you about. So since you brought this up, Linda, let's talk a little bit about some beetles out there as well. So beetles, there we go. Okay, these guys here are also referred to as a Japanese beetle, and sometimes there's different versions, but sometimes also referred to as a June bug. Okay, the reason why they're referred to as a June bug is that they come out at this time of the year. Generally in June is when they're, so you can see there's the dates are on the bottom there of the Japanese beetle life cycle. And so we can see between June and July is when they're at their adult stage and they're out there eating leaves. So over these next few weeks, this is the time that we're going to be seeing beetles. So you can put the traps up. Those traps are pheromone traps, meaning that they attract beetles from all over the place. So keep those pheromone traps away from any plants you do not want infected so that the beetles will all go there and will be caught. We can then also use Beetle Be Gone, which is as an approved product that is safe to use to take care of those beetles themselves. Thereafter, we can actually, if we have a beetle problem or if we had anything digging up in our lawn, we can go ahead and control grubs. There's a lot of grub controls that are out there. There are nematodes, there's Grub Be Gone, there's a bunch of products that are available. But now is the time that we need to be aware of beetles. So beetles as well, when you know you have them, is in this time of the year, is on at night, we'll turn our lights on. And when we turn our lights on, our exterior lights, all of a sudden you hear these like little things hitting our lights. And those are beetles. Another way that we can control beetles on cool mornings when the temperature is below 10 degrees, beetles will like sit on plants and they'll be dormant. They don't like it cold. So when it's cold, they just kind of freeze up. They're just like there like this. So you can go to those plants and you can put something underneath the plants and shake the plant, and the beetles will all fall down onto that tarp or that blanket, and then you can just kind of discard them, like collect them all, put them in a plastic bag, tie it up, or in that compostable bag and just get rid of them. But that's a little bit about beetles. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for that question. I kind of anticipated that somebody would have that question out there today as well. Good morning from Sharon Lloyd. Good morning. Hope everyone has a great day and week ahead. Thanks, Sharon, for that as well. Shout out to Stouffville today, and from Vicky in Stouffville, good morning to you. We have another shout out this morning. See you on the Luna. On the Luna. Okay. See you on the Luna. So the other thing that is exciting this week is, so I've never done a cruise. I've never been on a cruise in my life. So this week I'm with Breakfast Television, because those that are maybe joining for the first time, Monday through Friday, I'm on Breakfast Television Toronto that also broadcasts nationally. I'm on there as your weather guy, but as a person that also talks about gardening all the time. Everybody calls me Frankie Flowers. That's where the nickname came from. But this week on Tuesday, I'm traveling to Florida, to Port Canaveral. I'm traveling alongside my colleague Devo Brown, and then my boys are coming with me. We're going to get onto the Disney Wish, which is Disney's brand new cruise ship. So we will be the first media, we're the only Canadian media, on the ship for a little tour. So in the span of a month, I'm going to be on 2 different cruises. You never know where life's going to take you. You never know. You never know. Here we go again. Diane, good morning. Enjoy your show. I enjoy doing it. This is fun. This is kind of fun. It is always, because I learn too. And I also see what's going on with people. How do I keep birds out of my garden? This question. They are damaging my younger vegetable plants. Those birds, I tell you. A lot of the times when you go to different gardens, you'll actually see a scarecrow. Scarecrows were intended for birds, right? To scare birds off. But often scarecrows won't do that. But sometimes what you'll see is aluminum foil plates that are in the garden. And those actually in the garden, they actually, on a windier day, they'll kind of move around, they'll reflect light. They actually scare birds. So you can do that. You can net, so we can put netting over the area to protect them that way. An owl, a plastic owl, sometimes put up, and an owl is a predator to a bird. You can do those different things to kind of keep them out of the way. But often the aluminum foil, the aluminum pans, just kind of hung throughout a little vegetable garden space, or even on fruit trees. There's a lot of the wet times that can keep birds away. So there you go. We have a question here from Marlene. Will frost protection fleece work for a row cover? Yes, indeed, it will. That's a great question. That frost protection fleece will still allow light to come through. It's going to be on top, but also just a cheap bed sheet. You can always just use a cheap bed sheet too, which is really good as well. Go to Marshall's, Winners, Walmart, anywhere where it's cheap, just cheap. Good morning, my good friend, Bradley Mason. Good morning to you, Bradley. It's been some time. Here we go with Chris this morning. Tuli, good morning. Is it recommended to prune zucchini plants at all, or just let them grow and do their thing? Sometimes it's a good idea with a zucchini plant, if it's very lush and very thick, is to prune out and kind of cut out a few of those stems just to allow some light. If you have a lot of blooms on the zucchini plant, you can actually pick up some of the blooms themselves. But most times you just let it be. You can just let it be, and the zucchini will do well. Just a reminder to try to prevent overhead watering, so that oscillating sprinkler of water, that's where you get powdery mildew. If you see any damaged leaves, so if you see any damaged leaves that maybe have any marking, remove those at any time. But outside of that, and then if you're picking those blossoms of the zucchini, so that you're actually making sure that you can have enough energy in that plant to other, the zucchini blossoms are harvested, and those zucchini blossoms can actually be used and stuffed into a ricotta. Beautiful. Zucchini blossoms are beautiful. I'm going to do a zucchini blossom recipe. I'm going to do that. which is a good idea. This is where I take notes. This is my thinking. You guys just saw me thinking there. Okay. Good question, by the way, as well. Any questions? Vegetable garden, lawns, flower gardens, roses, hydrangeas. I'm here. Hi, Frankie. Good morning. Did some gardening with our MP, Scott. Cleaned up and planted the post office in Gravenhurst. Sandy, Scott Aitchison, MP Scott Aitchison is a friend that I went to university with. Scott, I'm going to tell you about him. In university, we were building my family's berry location. And he was like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? I said, I have to go up there and I have to do some work. I have to actually paint the floor. And he's like, who are you doing it with? I think I'm just doing it with a few people. And he's like, can I come? Can I help you? And I said, yeah. And so we painted the floor. So he came up and helped me paint the floor, stayed at my parents' house. And he was just a great person. So when you go by the berry store, just know that this guy and another guy now that's actually doing really well as an MP, we just were painting floors in 1993. That's all we were doing. Here we go as well. Replying to Sharon Simmer. This is what I like, guys. So Tanya, you're answering the questions really good too, which you're talking about creating your own insecticidal soap, which is really easy, which is a 1/3 mixture, of course, with 2/3 water. The only thing is, guys, and that's pouring over the deck boards, I guess, for the ants. The only thing is, deck boards are completely fine. When you're doing an insecticidal soap or you're doing any home remedy, before applying it onto a bunch of plants, you want to do a little test area first to make sure that it's not going to harm the plant itself. Super key. If you're ever applying an insecticidal soap or a fungicide, so an insecticide, fungicide, we're never doing it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a sunny day. We're never doing that. We're either doing it earlier in the morning when the sun is low in the sky, or as the sun is setting in the evening. Those are the times. We don't want the sun at the greatest intensity when we're applying anything like that, because we can do more harm. Just a reminder, you can take full strength vinegar, and vinegar sprayed on a plant will kill the plant. A lot of herbicides are actually, natural herbicides are just vinegar based. So you just got to be careful. Even though something is natural, even though that something's a home remedy, just be careful overall. Always use a test, because those approved products that you see that are for sale, they're already pre-mixed. All the work is done for you. And as long as you're using as applied, as you read the directions, you will be safe. But never do it on the heat of a day. There you go. Danny, good morning from Huntsville. This year I added a DIY bee bath, glass bowl on a base filled with glow-in-the-dark stones, which is great. So that's the reason why you're doing that too. The bee bath, the bird bath, is that if you look at bees actually will fly and you'll see them dip into water and then keep going on. Bees need a source of water. So water is life. That's why when we talk about conservation and we talk about the environment, the discussion needs to be a lot, soil, of course, soil is giving us life, the microbes and things that are in there too, but water itself, fresh water. And we here in the province of Ontario and really across Canada, we're fairly arrogant with the access to water that we have. And what I mean by that is we have so much fresh water around us that I feel that many Canadians, many Ontarians and people that live in Ontario don't value water because we just have so much. So we need to value water more. And also we need to make sure that we're protecting and taking care of and providing sources for nature for good water that's out there. This is from Miriam there. Good morning, Frankie. Frankie, is lotus or water lilies that can be grown in a little pond or a garden? Both can be grown. It's easier to be growing a water lily. So the water lily is the one that I would recommend. You can actually take, the whiskey barrels, the old whiskey barrels, put something around that same size, and you can make a patio water garden out of that. You can put a little pump in there with a fountain that can do that. You can actually, on the one side, just put a water lily within, and then that water lily. The only thing about lilies and lotus is they don't like water that's moving so much. So they usually have to be put away from that area where you're seeing that moving water. But the lilies, when you're building a pond, the whole thing is you are putting plants into a pond, no matter the size of that pond, because the plants are eating all the nutrient that's there. And if we just didn't have any plants, and let's say we just had fish, well, what would happen is there'd be a lot of algae. So the plants are in there to balance out the algae and to really create an environment, an ecosystem. That's what you're doing overall. Here we go. Oh, Unstoppable Tracy's saying something again. Frank Ferragini, such a brilliant idea. Thanks for sharing this, and always love seeing your variety. Ontario Difference Maker awarded heart on your shoulder. Thank you. Right there. Right there. Thank you very much. It's over my shoulder, but it's actually right here on my heart, by the way. That was through Variety Village, and it's awesome. Let's thank you so much for that, by the way. Sometimes I get speechless because I just do things. I don't do it for anything, but I just think, hey, this is the right thing. This is where I can help. This is how I can make a difference, and I just go and do. That's just what I do. And if you want to check out something that I've recently done, if you go to Yorkdale Mall and go on top of where the Go buses are, you see them entering in, and you'll see the office tower. You can go take a look at Elevated Eats, which is the rooftop garden that we've done, where we're donating all that food to Toronto's Hungry, because we're trying to elevate food choices for Toronto's Hungry, but also elevate food education. Jennifer, we have a beautiful, healthy burning bush for many years. Okay, so that burning bush is a variety of Euonymus. It's Euonymus alata. This spring, less than a third is alive. What happened? So a burning bush is a broadleaf evergreen. Broadleaf evergreens can actually suffer in wintertime from moisture loss. So that moisture loss is when you go out on a sunny day, and on that sunny day in the wintertime when it's cold, sunny, and windy, you know how our skin gets really dry. Moisture is being pulled out. That's when our lips get dry. That same moisture can be pulled out of a broadleaf evergreen and or an evergreen suffering for winter burn. That's one thing that could have happened to it. So if it sat a little bit dry going into fall, that's what could have happened. Another thing could be something underneath could have actually been eating at its roots, can have been doing rabbits sometimes will do some damage on them as well. But there's some sort of stress that happened. So what I would like you to do, and that is, Jennifer, take a picture of it. So you can email me that picture at Frankie with an IE at frankieflowers.com, Frankie with an IE at frankieflowers.com. You can email me that picture, and then what I can do is take a look at it. I would say that it's probably winter burn that it suffered from. Now what we have to do is look at some proper pruning so that we can see if we can bring it back around, fill it out, or if it's just a matter of that it's that bad of damage that you may need to remove it and replace it. I would always replace burning bush now with the dwarf variety burning bush, and I would like to see what size the plant is to see if it is the dwarf variety. So here we go. This is from Deb. Hi, Frankie. I planted purple cone flowers, which is echinacea, last year, and they are really small, and they don't seem to be growing well, and they don't have any buds yet. So they don't necessarily need buds as long as they're in full sun. Key. So coneflowers need full sun. Establishments sometimes take some time overall. They do like a well-drained soil. So if they're sitting in an area that's low, wet, or really clay-based, they won't do well. They want to be more of a drier soil. They're actually a prairie plant that almost likes a more sandy base. So just take a look at the soil where they're planted. Make sure they're in full sun. Be a little bit patient with them. But if they're not in full sun, you want to move them into a full sun location. If they're in a clay soil, then I would lift them and actually hill some soil up to them and just kind of keep them out of that really boggy situation, because if they sit wet all the time, they'll actually won't grow that well at all. This is from Mish. Donate your kale to a place that feeds the homeless in your area. That's a good idea. That is a great idea. I don't know if I probably do have enough kale to do that as well. So I'm going to see with the Bradford Food Bank, and that's a good idea. I've been donating all the other food out there, so it's a really good idea. May, here we go. Good morning. What is your view on beneficial insects for the garden? My view is they're fantastic, right? So there are so many different insects that can help us in the garden. We can release ladybugs. Ladybugs are probably one of the most common. You got praying mantis. There are also parasitic wasps that are out there that are really good. There are a host of different insects that are out there. Birds will actually eat insects. The key is when in an outdoor environment, you can't necessarily control them staying in your garden. They're always going to go where the food source is, but really you got to pay attention to beneficial insects. And that's why you take the time to identify an issue that you have. And that's why you're really not, when you're doing treatments, you're doing spot treatments often, so that we're not going to be killing any of those beneficial insects. An insecticidal soap won't kill a ladybug because a ladybug isn't a harder shelled insect that's out there, but they're good. They're good for the garden. It's something that you want to encourage to your garden as an organic gardener. Stephanie, good morning from Alliston. Question for you about boxwood. Yes, indeed. Mine have partly turned yellow, but not dead green at the bottom. What is going on? How can I help them? So Stephanie, because they have yellowed, that yellow could actually be a cause of moisture loss from last season. Keeping them watered right now is super key. Fertilization with a higher first number, nitrogen, would be beneficial. And then I would do some pruning as well. Mine were actually a slight tone of yellow because they didn't cover a few. I just prune the tops, gave them a nice watering and kept them well watered and fertilizing. And now the new flush of growth is all nice and green. And so they're actually converting back over. Boxwood have suffered from some different moths. There's actually a boxwood moth that's out there. That's a caterpillar that's eating away. And there are some different insects that are causing harm to boxwoods. Not so much been reported in the Alliston area. And if it's just a browning, I would anticipate it's more of a burn, a winter burn and or moisture loss versus anything that's an insect and or disease problem. Stephanie, if you wish, Frankie@frankieflowers.com. You can send me a picture there. I'm going to answer one more question. Here we go. Good morning from Elizabeth from PEI. I planted lavender, 4-inch pots in May. When should I prune them? I would just leave them. I would completely leave them for this season. If you do see any, and they're brand new this season, if you do see any blooms that are developing on them for this year, what I would do is try to just pinch those blooms off until it's been made that they were planted in. I would pinch, they should be rooted actually now. I would just leave them. So they should be nicely rooted. If you want to go up to them and just go to the base and just kind of see when you go to kind of lift them a bit, when you got to go, like just go in gently. If they seem like they're rooted, just leave them and just let them be. Don't do any cutting back on them whatsoever. I would do any just basic maintenance pruning in the fall to see how tall they've grown to make sure they don't flatten down. And then next season, I would just cut back on some deadwood on them. And that's about it. I would just leave them because I want them to establish. And I'd like them just to get happy in their homes for the first season. There you guys go. That is a full half hour, actually 31 minutes, almost 32 minutes of gardening glory, garden questions. I hope I inspired you today to get out there, to do some gardening, to do some weeding, to take a look at those insects. A reminder, Health Canada approved. I want to get a shout out to Farm and Food Care Ontario that joined us today. Check out them as well. If you need anything in the world of gardening, if you're stumped and you don't know what something is, frankieflowers.com is my website. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to help grow better gardens because there's nothing better than gardening. Because I always say, gardening is better than therapy. It makes you feel good. And at the end, you get tomatoes. But I'm going to tell you, therapy is super important as well. If you're not feeling good, always reach out to somebody, guys. That's just my way to make you smile. Hope you made you smile on this day. Happy Sunday, all. Stay cool. Don't be